didn't see you there. Come, sit. Let me tell you a tale. Did I ever tell you when I joined the GMTK 2022 Game Jam? Oh, I remember it like it was last week. I'm participating in the GMTK 2022 Game Jam. It's really hard for me to say that, but I'm in it. I'm really excited to work on some cool stuff for it. It's taking place between the 15th and the 18th. I'm working in 2 teams. It would be neat to test out my programming chops with all of the other wonderful people I'll be working with. I want to do more game jams, like the Jingle Jam, later this year even. So yeah, that'll be neat. See what I'm going to be spending my hard-earned blood, sweat, tears, and other various body fluids on. And stay tuned, new video coming soon. Good times. Oh, but my apologies. I was falling away to my nostalgia when I should be telling you about my new stories, which are even more nostalgic. You'd like that, wouldn't you, Timmy?
Grandpa, who are you talking to?
Why, you, of course.
But Grandpa, I'm not real.
Silly little Timmy. That's preposterous. What do you mean? Well, the voices are back. It's nothing a good shave couldn't fix. I think I've been alone too long. That's more like it. Now that I've gotten a clean shave, let's head on over to the captain's quarters. I made a few changes to it that should make our little presentation go along smoothly. Thank you. Like my handy dandy notice board here. This took me longer than it probably should have to make, but it's nice, it's neat, and we'll be using it to present my story of the GMTK Game Jam. Ta-da. When I started the jam looking for teams to join, I used the public teams board that GMTK provided. It made finding a team for the kinds of skills I was offering really fast and efficient. I applied for 3 teams and got accepted to 2 of them. The third had already filled up by the time they looked at my request, but honestly, it was probably for the best. Doing 3 games at once might have actually killed me. The first team I joined was the Raging Dreamers. The group consisted of 2 designers, 3 visual artists, 1 musical artist, and 2 coders. We eventually got a 3rd coder in around the 10-hour mark, but we'll cover that detail more later on. The game's original concept was a dice-based survival horror game. You would pick up dice as your equipment and tools and roll to see what effect they'd have. All the while, you would have a dice-based monster chasing you, rolling its own die to see what effects it could apply to you or itself to make your life harder. Your ultimate goal was to escape, and you would run through 4 levels we designed. However, as time went on, we had to scale this concept down quite a bit. Our final iteration was more of a puzzle platformer with a simple room layout and an exit. It showed off the core mechanics that we were able to get done, and it did have more sophisticated mechanics implemented, we just didn't have time to fully flesh them out. Starting with what went right, the clear direction and communication from our designers was definitely a strong point. We started off well with a session 0 to brainstorm ideas and to come up on a group vote for what kind of game we would build. From there, we would call in meetings and check in with the various departments to make sure everyone was on track with what they were doing. If cuts needed to be made, we would know quickly and adapt accordingly, leading to our design plans to be highly adaptable and flexible, which really came in handy during those last crunch hours. As for the things that went wrong, it was ultimately the fact that we had to radically shrink our scope back during the final hours, all the way down to just 1 level. There were 2 main contributors to this problem, the first being the dev team being understaffed and overworked. Since our original dev team was a software developer who had little experience in C# and Unity specifically, and me, who was stretched very thin between 2 game jams. This is why we had to bring in a 3rd programmer later into the project, who was a major help. However, having 3 programmers at the start would have avoided this from being an issue in the first place. The second reason was the non-dev team's lack of experience with Unity. and that causing bottlenecks in several processes. For instance, modelers had struggled to be able to import their work after they finished it, and were unable to check to ensure that it's working. There's a ghost bench in the current build. Some say it still haunts us to this day. But ultimately, both of these issues caused a lot of the content we built to not be put in the final game, because it couldn't be synthesized in time. But despite all that, I'm still happy with the cute little platformer the team and I managed to pull out. The other team I worked with were called the Kojima Boys. It consisted of 2 designers, 3 developers this time, 2 artists, and 2 music/audio producers. Together, we made the Heroes of RNG dice game, a dice-based RPG dungeon crawler. The core gameplay loop was the player walking into a room. They would roll dice against the enemy in that room to see how much damage you would do, how much damage they would do, and ultimately see if you survived to move on to the next room. We had 4 core character classes, each with different abilities depending on the dice that they would roll, and a different looking die. We had the warrior, the archer, the rogue, and the warlock, and I just love these designs to pieces. But I'm getting ahead of myself. As for what went right with the Kojima Boys, I think the strongest element was how well each group was able to work with each other and produce some really high quality content as a result. Here are a couple examples. The artists knocked everything out the park, between the enemy designs, the hero designs, and the really cute chibi ones. The musical composers made some great pieces and great sound effects for enemies being hit, dice being thrown, and epic battle music. Our designers were no slouch either, as they created intricate and interesting interactions between each enemy to try to spice up the variety of combat. And the programmers were able to get a lot done as we kept collaborating with each other in voice calls, constantly checking up, working with each other on bug fixes, and ensuring that all commits and code were compatible with each other. This was a pretty complex game, and as much as we weren't able to get done, I'm really proud about how much we were able to. But the reasons we weren't able to fit everything in were multifaceted, which we'll be going over here in the What Went Wrong section. The biggest hindrance to this project was our design creep. We started out with an overambitious version of our game. It was meant to look like Into the Breach with tile-based movement, predictive attacks, and multiple enemies on each map. It wasn't until 24 hours in that we realized that idea wasn't going to happen. So we had to start taking an axe to our initial plans and cutting it down to what we could do within our remaining time. There was also some level of unclear direction. After our initial brainstorming idea, there were new designs that were made, but the rest of the team wasn't too aware of this. So we did have some conflicting information on what we thought we were doing and how we were going to approach things. Ultimately, we needed more adaptability so that way we were able to course correct and focus more on core elements to the game that we needed, as opposed to features and mechanics that ultimately had to end up being scrapped. I do still love the game we ended up with, I just wish we had more time to add the polish and feedback a game like this deserves, and really accentuate the cool elements each department was able to put in. But all of that has been my experience with the GMTK 2022 Game Jam. That title's still so long. It was so good that not only will I be participating next year, but I'll also be trying to participate in more game jams throughout the year, like the up-and-coming Jingle Jam. One of the best lessons I've learned in jams like this is to make something specific within a time frame. So, a personal goal of mine is to reflect this with the kind of content I'm going to be making. I'll always try to make at least one video showing off something small, iterative, and neat that I was able to make. I'm always doing game design and game work stuff, but I just don't advertise it. So, I'll try to do it once a week. We'll see how quickly I break that promise. But it's the idea and the goal that counts, so I'll be trying to stick with it. And thank you for sticking around, watching me ramble about my time in the Game Jam. I really hope you were able to learn something valuable from my experience. And if not, at least I hope I was entertaining. If you're still bored, click on one of the videos around me, annotate it around, or stick around because I should have something new next week. Assuming I didn't instantly break my promise. But yeah, I'll try to catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.